Hey y'all. Okay, so tonight we are going to talk about Matthew 16. It's like not really 21 to 28, but really 24 to 28. But we'll kind of talk a little bit about why he said what he said. So this is Matthew, I think I love reading the Gospels because I love learning about specifically what Jesus said and what he taught and all those things. And so, though I do believe that the Bible is most is symbols, so the Bible speaks towards a deeper meaning, pretty much for everything, pretty much everything regarding the Israelites, all the prophets, all of that. Creation, all of that is symbology for a deeper meaning, and that's what reading the Bible and getting to grow in your relationship with God. That's what helps nurture that. And you kind of open some of those things where they start to make sense, that you realize that they're actually, they are metaphors to apply to your life and what is possible and what is some of the things that you can go through. So, yeah, so that's interesting. So this is, Jesus is talking about basically predicting his death. So in verse 21, it says, "From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life." So Jesus was trying to like soften the blow a little bit, though he realized that the disciples would not get it at all. Which is evident by what Peter said in the next verse here. It says, "So Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him." Do you realize who the him is? This is Jesus. Okay, so Peter is rebuking Jesus. Peter says, "Never, Lord." He said, "This shall never happen to you." So here's Jesus telling him the way that it's going to be. And Peter's like, "Oh, no, it's not going to happen like that." I think that's crazy. Peter began to rebuke him. And Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Okay, so if we actually listen to the words of Jesus, I think it will open our eyes so much faster than having to go through years of just like things not making sense. So there's a lot packed into that sentence, except that if we just took Jesus's words for what he meant them to be, it would clear up a lot of confusion. So Peter is thinking physical. He's thinking, no, you can't die like physically. Peter is living in the flesh, right? Which is 95% of us live in the flesh, live out of human physical, we don't live spiritually. And Jesus was all about the spiritual. That's all he came to show us, that we are literally spiritual bodies living in human skin, right? But we're souls with human bodies. That's who we are. And so once we realize that, then we start to, it changes our whole perception on literally life, everything. But this is what Jesus was trying to tell Peter. Peter was thinking it was physical. Hey, no, I'm not going to let them do that to you. And Jesus is like, you do not understand. Like, how can you still not understand? So he calls, get behind me, Satan. He goes, he knows that it's the devil working through Peter, being like, okay, I'm going to keep him as far away from this understanding of what it means to truly understand God and to be one with God. And I know even as I say that, I know that maybe offend a lot of people, but the reality of it is Jesus spoke about that so much, that we are one with God. And those that who have ears to hear will hear. And Jesus talks about that in the Bible so much, of that what he's trying to, like I talked about in Matthew, when he says, when I am in the world, I am the light of the world. He was trying to pass that on to us. Do you understand? Jesus said, I am not good, only the Father is good. Like, he realized that he was, in this human aspect, no different than us. But he realized that truth, and that's what we're supposed to strive to realize, that we are one with God. Not in any sense of egotistical, anyway. Like, it's the most humblest thing that you can ever say, and truly, truly say it with such heart intensity that you could never think that you could be God. How could you even remotely say that? That's insane. And that's such a human perspective when you say that you're one with God. But it's such a beautiful spiritual concept when you really actually take that in and realize what that means. It's a beautiful thing. So that's what Jesus was saying to Peter. It's like, you still don't get it. Come on, get it, please. But do you saw Jesus? He would get frustrated with his disciples, and rightfully so. They were with him, and they still didn't get it until after he died. So, okay, let's keep moving on, because this is the stuff I wanted to talk about. So this is Jesus saying this. He says in verse 23, Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Okay, again, think spiritually, not physically. Like, think deeper. I'm trying to convey something more important than just physical. So, verse 24, then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it." What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? So let's stop there. Okay. There is a lot there. And when you really think about the words of Jesus, he always spoke in parables. Do you really think that he would just be super clear for those that just read him like, oh, okay, that's what that means? It's like, no. Jesus made it very clear that he pretty much only spoke in parables. So there's always, which means that there's always the meaning of the parable, okay, literally, which it's a parable, so you know it didn't really happen, but you can take it literally, or there is a deeper meaning, which is a spiritual meaning. And that's what Jesus was trying to convey, but also speak like that, so those who are only curious would want to go deeper and learn that deeper meaning, that spiritual meaning of what Jesus was trying to say. Because you can take it as a physical, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Like, that's not talking about martyrdom. Like, okay, maybe it is in certain instances, for sure it is, but what he's trying to convey to us is so much deeper than that. It just is, because he's trying to teach us a spiritual lesson here. So I'm jumping ahead. So let's go back to the whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. So I've heard so many talks and like YouTube videos about this. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross. Must deny themselves. Okay, so Jesus is saying, okay, I am in the clearest way going to tell you, if you want to be my disciple, here's what you do. So that looks to me like there's three things, right? First, you must deny yourself. Second is you take up your cross. And third, you follow me. I think it's so interesting, and not just interesting, but there's a reason for it, why there's so many threes in the Bible, right? That is very significant. Jesus and God spoke in numerology for sure. That's why you see the same repeating numbers, 40 used all the time, 12, 6, 3, 7. You hear these numbers a lot. 144. And then they're there for a reason, and they're typically there for a deeper meaning. And so you never want to try and pull something out of the Bible that's not there, but you also want to look at what is there and say, what could that mean? Could it potentially mean something deeper? And not just assume that you know what it means. Always look at it with like the eyes of like, did I understand that right last time when I read it? And that's always helped me in my limited knowledge of what I know about the Bible. But just to explore it with like eyes that are open, that you read each word and like, what was he trying to say here? Like, put yourself in his shoes if you can, which is very hard. But the more you think about that, the more you kind of focus on what was the mindset of Jesus around the disciples when he said these words. Where was he? What was he thinking? Was he frustrated because he hasn't slept? Or what was going through his mind? Because he was still working on his humanness. He was. So, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross. Okay, so how do you deny yourself? At what point have you denied yourself enough? So you've officially denied yourself. Obviously, that sounds so stupid, even for me to say that, because one day you may be like on top of the world, like on top of the mountain, and the next day you wake up and you're just like, why am I feeling so low? Like, what happened? Yesterday I was feeling great. I was like, okay, I got this. And then the next day I wake up and I'm like, okay, am I the same person? And that's why it says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves. And I believe, I need to look. I don't know right now, but I think it does. But another gospel, it's a gospel, one of the gospels says, deny themselves or daily. So it's basically like every day you need to do this, which is true. Every day I need to wake up and be like, okay, I don't know what today holds, but you are in control. And so most of the time it doesn't make sense. And but that's what he tells us to do, is we must deny ourselves. And then next he says, take up their cross. So Jesus took up his cross, which was to basically be the perfect example of what it looked like to be God in human form. That's what Jesus was for us. He was the perfect example of God in human flesh. That's what it was. And which is so interesting, again, and I hope to, but I hope not to, not for the sake of offending people, but for the sake of offending people and only to make you think. You do not have to agree with me. You do not. And I really don't anticipate that you will, but that's okay. But you need to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. So always question your thoughts. Always. It's so healthy. It is so healthy. It doesn't mean live like a jellyfish. I'm not saying that, because there's some absolutes that you can hold on to. But a lot of those beliefs that you believed, that I believed as well, they don't hold water. Like, Jesus never said a lot of those things. So hold on to the things that Jesus does say. And so when he says, take up your cross, what's your cross? What is that thing that God has given you that you know that you need to work through? What is that thing right now in front of you? And why you need to deny yourself daily, which it says another one, is because as you go through life, your cross is going to change. It's just going to change. Could be a kid that, a child that is whatever, is just struggling, or whatever it may be. There could be a spouse. It could be your own personal well-being. It could be financial. It could be any number of things. But that's why we need to do this daily, is deny yourself and take up your cross, because as you go through life, like, you're going to have to like pick up that cross, and you have to know what that cross is. The thing that's really holding you down, or keeping you down from being the better version of yourself. It's important to recognize that. It's important to go inward and to assess ourselves. Like, how are we doing? Like, are we growing? Are we like staying the same? Like, you can't stay the same. And if you're like me, you need to continually grow. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that life is always going to work out, because a lot of times it doesn't. But you know deep in your heart that you are doing what God's called you to do, whatever that means. Whether things look like they work out in the world or not, that doesn't matter. But you have to go to sleep. You have to put your head on the pillow and be like, okay, I followed my heart, and my heart is full of love. And God says that He is love. So I'm trusting that God that is in me has shown as a light to whoever that is, in whatever state that I'm in, whether it's feeling good about myself or not. Excuse me. I'm going to take some hibiscus and sage tea. Oh my gosh, that is a gift from God. I love it. Whatever stage you are. And so, just important things to consider for sure. So, and then the last part, so it says, is to deny yourself, take up your cross. And then the last part is to follow me, because like, that's a hard part sometimes. I'm not going to lie. Like, following me, it sounds easy, but when He says follow me, again, that's daily. And sometimes it seems like God is distant, where He's not close, and you certainly can't see Him, nor can you sometimes feel Him. But He still says, follow me. He doesn't say, as long as I'm doing this, as long as I'm giving you what you want, or like all of those things that we attach this to. By following me, that things are just going to work out. And He does not promise that. He doesn't promise that, but He does promise that, but not in a way that you will think. So, follow me is Psalms 23, where it says, yea, though I walk through the shadow of the valley, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. So that is this. Following me is not for the faint of heart. Because it requires sacrifice. It requires to live like Jesus. Look at His life. I mean, was that easy? No. I'm not saying our life is going to be the life of Jesus by any means. Doesn't mean we're going to go out like that by any means, but He was our example. And yeah, so, but this part is probably my favorite, for it says, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. So, that first part kind of sucks, like, so we know that, so whoever wants to save their life will lose it, which is, I spend most of my life doing. I didn't think I was, and I think deep down, I definitely have had a heart for God forever, and it hasn't like manifested in the ways that sometimes I wanted, but I did it. That was part of my life. That was part of my journey. That's part of the path that God had for me. So it had to happen like that. I mean, it happened like that. So, so I don't want to focus on this first part. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, because that's what most people are doing. So that kind of makes sense. Even though it makes sense, it doesn't mean that it's easy to let go. It just kind of makes sense. But the second part, that's the part where I think we need to really kind of really investigate, because it says, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What does it mean to lose your life for God? And that the only way to find your life is to lose it. At what point do you know that it's lost? So, like, if you remember what I talked about earlier, I said that there is deeper meaning to the Bible. So when you read things, you may read something and then come back, like, I don't know, 5 years later and read it again. You're like, oh my, like, that's insane. I've read that verse a zillion times. It never resonated like it did right then when I read it. So there's always deeper meaning. There's always deeper meaning. Which is why I think it's so fascinating that, like, I put the Bible down for about 6 to 9 months, I think. I just didn't read it at all. When I went through, like, my, like, awakening, and when I just came out of nowhere. My, okay, this is probably going to get a little long. So, anyway, I'll try and make it short. So it came out of nowhere. I had read the Bible, and I wanted to read it with intention. So this was in 2020. Gosh dang, I'm going to get this wrong. 2024, I believe. So I started January 2024. I was going to read the Bible with intention from beginning to end, and only continue if I understood what I was reading. So I would cross-reference all the time. So I honestly, I feel like I read the Bible twice, or maybe even 2.5 times, but I ended up finishing in July 23rd, 10 in the morning. I ended up finishing reading the Bible. And I remember just writing in there at the end of it, the revelation said, God is good. And then that night, my mom passed. My mom had cancer, and she died at like 9:30 at night. And my mom was the one that actually really encouraged me to read the Bible. Like, she brought us in a strict Baptist church, which is freaking brutal, but also grateful. So that's crazy. But anyway, so about 3 months after that, I finished reading the Bible in July when my mom passed the same day, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, what do I do now? And I'm not that I had arrived by any means, but I was like, okay, what do I do? And so I took a little break. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to pray. I'm just going to be still. And I know that Jesus would go into, like, on the mountains, and he would go in the wilderness, and he would just go pray. And I wasn't all praying, because you can't just talk the whole time. It's just like being still and meditating and being silent and letting God speak. And so I started to do that. And then I got to a point where God said, put the Bible down and don't read it. And so that was a whole new thing for me, you know. And but I came back, and so here I am now, and loving the Bible, but I read it with a whole different lens, which took a lot. And I only say that because I believe that I experienced this. Like, I did. Where it says, whoever loses their life for me will find it. So So I will say that I feel like I've lost my life for him as of now. Um, I can't say that I've found it, but I believe that is right around the corner. And I have so much to be grateful for in my life. I know I'm blessed beyond measure with my incredible kids and my beautiful wife who just adores me. What a freaking gift that is. Yeah, I am so blessed. But I have experienced a bit of what this means, and it's brutal. It's a brutal thing, and I don't wish it on anybody. But you certainly learn a lot from it. So I wish that on a lot of people. But hopefully, maybe you can learn from somebody else's sufferings or trials, and I don't think you have to go through the crazy stuff. And I'm not here to say that there's people that have been through so much, and I can't even begin to even compare, and so I don't. So our perspective is our own, but I will say that, I know that people are hurting. I know that. And if I can be a light, at all to one person, hell yes. Hell yes. Every day. So, okay. So that's what I think that verse means to me. What good will for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Yes. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Another word for soul is life. Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul or for their life? Yes. Can you imagine? Short-term wins are good, I'm not going to lie, and they feel good to the soul, Delayed gratification and playing the long game, it's not for the faint of heart. And if you're doing that, like we are, man, keep going. That's all I have to say. Just keep going. All right. So, or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels. Then he will reward each person according to what they have done. Truly, I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Okay. I'm not even going to begin to touch that last one. 28. So we're going to just focus on the other ones before that, and where it says, for the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. So I will just say that from my opinion, to truly become like a disciple of Jesus, what he really meant by that is you are going to go through suffering. And I will say that if you have not been through suffering, you are not truly one of his disciples. So let's define disciples. It doesn't mean that you don't love Jesus, but to give your entire life to following Jesus, which is disciple is like you're a follower. You follow somebody, and those were disciples of Jesus. They emulated his life. They strove to, in whatever aspect of their life, they tried to be like Jesus. And they strove to be like Jesus because that was the example. So again, I'm not here to offend anybody. And if it offends you, then probably offends you for a reason. You know what? And at that point, I don't really care. So if you get offended for me saying that, I do believe that it's clear in the Bible that if you're going to be a disciple, you are going to go through suffering. And if you haven't, then you haven't given up enough. Given up. Wow. Given up enough. And this is no parade how much you've given up on a stage. Like, that's the last thing that anybody who wants to be a disciple of Jesus cares about. What somebody else looks like or what they're doing or how they are ranking. Like, when your goal is love and to love God and to love others, that stuff, okay, yes, you need to fight it a little bit. But for the most part, that shit got old a while ago. And you realize that life is so much more important than living in that earthly drama. Because people are hurting. And it's such a waste of time to be stuck in that stuff that doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. So focus on the stuff that does matter. And just opening your heart, just opening your heart to people. And then, here's a byproduct. If you live your life by opening up your heart to people and giving of yourself, but still protecting yourself, still loving yourself, for sure, all of that. Put on the oxygen mask first, for sure. But the byproduct of that is, your Father will reward each person according to what you have done. So you're not doing it to get the reward. You're doing it because you just want to please God. That's all. Oh, and by the way, he's going to reward you in ways you never realized. But that's not for here nor there. Because he's going to reward you for those in ways that you never realized because you never realized. You never focused on the reward. So because of that, the reward was so much bigger than you could ever imagine. So the lesson is, there's multiple lessons, but keep your eyes on Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and the life. He's pointing the way. He's pointing the way to truth. He's pointing the way to love and life. To follow him. Live like Jesus. Thank you.